Welcome back, everyone. The purpose of this video is to walk you through and explain how unusual whales using the unusual whales options flow data can not only help you identify a trade, but can actually help you build confidence in your existing trades and reach a higher return on your investment. So it's a little bit different than you usually hear. What is one of the number one things that plagues traders? Well, when you have a trade idea that goes your way and then you exit and take 7% or a low percentage, and then at the end of the day it ends up running for 200%, and you think, I just lost a big opportunity. Well, that's a big thing when it comes to building your wealth, and I'm going to talk to you and explain how unusual whales data can help you with that, and that's coming right up. First, I'm going to explain what you're seeing on the screen. So you are, of course, seeing the trade idea that we had, and this is Facebook. You can see the return that we ran for. Fantastic, phenomenal return on the trade. We'll get into the specifics of that in just a moment. But right now, I am going to also put up for you right here is the options flow data that we saw. So you see at the time frame, you can see the time frames here, right? At this time, we saw a heavy flow coming in. So we had a consolidation point that we're going to look at and then a breakdown. But this flow gave us that additional confidence. Now, what else do you see on the screen? Well, it's a bit of a mix, right? I have two brokers up, and that's because I thought we'd just have a little bit of fun, get a lot of requests for Thinkorswim because that's what a lot of people use, but more and more requests for interactive brokers, which is what I'm using on the right hand side. This is IBKR, Interactive Brokers. And for those of you who are interested, I recommend to everybody at least take a look at Interactive Brokers. It's international, I believe over 92 markets. Why do I say that? It's the difference is in execution. You might like the aesthetic a little bit better on Thinkorswim. You might like the aesthetic a little bit better on Interactive Brokers. But execution is critical. What do I mean by that? When you place your order, do you sit there and watch this weird little lag where your order doesn't get filled and then it gets filled at some random price? That happens so frequently on Thinkorswim, according to so many people. I've seen it happen to myself numerous times where I'll have my order here and it just blows past it. Lightning fast, some of the best order fills in Interactive Brokers, and ultimately that is so much more important than an aesthetic. So that is my public service announcement. Now, let's get right into this video. Okay, so the scope of this video is not to explain all the details on what led to this trade idea. Now, this trade idea did not come from unusual whales, so that's interesting. I didn't use unusual whales to line this up, and as I explained to everybody, do not ever use one single source of data or analysis to line up all your trades. Look at everything, right? Like if you're doing just pure technical analysis and it's all levels and someone's sold you on that idea, you can't ignore real things like news, right? So let's say that this is our level 194.70 and you think it's going to go up. That's a key resistance level. If we break that, we're going to go to the moon. Okay. And as you break that, there's a news announcement that something happened with Mark Zuckerberg that's absolutely terrible. He's stepping down. He's resigning because he doesn't have confidence in the company. Imagine this happens. This is 100% hypothetical. I'm not making that claim. The stock will tank. It doesn't care about your level. It doesn't. I know somebody else told you that, but you have to look at all the multiple data points that are out there. So we had this lined up for different reasons. It wasn't a clear flow, as you guys have seen in the markets. The markets have been up and down. It's hard to predict. So we're only taking those plays which we believe have the highest upside and limited downside. So I call this out because I know that Facebook, as I've explained for different reasons in other areas, is more sensitive to market movement these days because of what's going on with the company. So I felt like we had weakness in the market. We're going to see a breakdown. And of course, if we were, I knew Facebook was going to break down hard. So you could see there's a bit of a consolidation point here. I'm going to scroll back just here. There are some actually moves here for about 30-40% each time there's a breakdown. And you can see in here we have an IV spike. So this is the general area of entry. I marked that over here. If you had an amazing entry, maybe you got in at 62, 61 cents, but I like to be a little bit more realistic. However, I also believe that we should mark what would be a strong entry because you should be working on getting the best entries you can. So I thought this moved a little too quickly. 68 cents is generally where we got in. And as you can see, we get the breakdown. Now, what did we have with unusual whales? Well, the data I showed you earlier, as I mentioned, it didn't help line up the trade, but this started happening in real time. And I've always explained that I do like to peek back and forth, particularly when I'm scalping. I like to look at the options flow. Now I see the options flow coming in bearish for Facebook, right? I already have my trade idea, which is bearish on Facebook. Then I believe the markets are bearish in their week. We have a lot of things lining up in our favor, remember. And of course, then I have my technical analysis on my entry point of 194.7. So note how I have multiple items going in my favor. This gives me the confidence to enter. And of course, what we see here is we see a strong breakdown. And as I've discussed, I don't believe in just this YOLO lifestyle of like, bro, risk it all. Don't risk it all. That's how you blow up your account and then you disappear. You know why you don't hear from a lot of people who get burned doing the YOLO thing or risking it all and doing this furu style? It's because they're gone. They get so upset that their accounts are blown up, they stop posting. You only hear from the winners, so you don't want to delude yourself with a false sense of confidence of having a bad strategy. So you take some off the table, but you get some really good breakdowns. I would have taken some more off the table here, and then here we get a phenomenal peak. And of course, if you hold runners throughout the day, which is again what I believe makes sense, you get a big return. So you see how that worked on the stock price. And I'll just zoom out, which is kind of cool on interactive brokers. You can actually, on your mouse wheel, if I scroll back, it just scrolls out. And when you go up on your mouse wheel, it scrolls in, or zooms in rather. And so you can see that we have a breakdown through the day. What we see here, of course, though, with Facebook, and this would have knocked you out. You could have gotten a re-entry just around here, of course, again, but it hadn't hit our level. So you see that big jump, and we're going all the way up. Here we are at 253. See that spike, pull back. If you're holding runners, you could tolerate something like this too. I wouldn't go all the way back, but you see that big move up, and of course we finished the day 276. Now, if you're going to get the bulk of that, where's that going to come from? It's probably going to come from a lot on this move, right? You probably don't want to keep runners here. I mean, if you have a large position size, maybe you hold a little bit longer and you take it down here. But let's talk about unusual whales. I have a lot of videos on strategy, on how to hold, how to scale out. Take a look at those, and I will link to some of them, or you could just look at my channel. What I want to talk about is, why does that bullish flow help us? Well, if there isn't a turnaround in the markets, the bearish flow, if there isn't a turnaround in the market, right, it gives you confidence that you just have more lined up, right? I talk about more things in your favor. The more you have in your favor, the better, all else equal. Now, when I say that, if you're looking at the flow, let me give you an example. If the flow's 55% bearish and 45% bullish, and you kind of have some fundamentals lined up in your favor, and you kind of have news, that doesn't mean it's a strong trade just because you have three different factors. All those factors are weak. 55-45 split on the flow, that's not that strong. Kind of having news on your side, that could be subjective. When it's kind of, that means you think it might be a good thing or a bad thing. And kind of having fundamental data, if it's slightly off your price targets, that's not very strong. So when I talk about multiple data points, right, it means strong data points in your favor. Here I had a strong trade idea, right? We had weakness in the market, which was clear. Elon Musk casting doubt over the economy. Of course, we have interest rates rising, inflation is high, the markets are generally weak, and they had a rally up, so there was a prime opportunity for a move down. And of course, with Facebook, it's hypersensitive right now. There's a lot of clouded vision around Meta. So what we did here is we had our entry point, some profit takers getting in and out here, our entry point here, and we know through the flow, and I actually posted this to my Twitter feed, and I said, hey, look at the flow. This is giving us the green light that we're going to see a move down. And we'd seen that building up in this consolidation period. So we knew that re-entries were more than likely to be viable. And of course, we were already making money and profiting. Like I said, I lined this trade up without the flow, already making money and profiting. And then you see the flow coming in. That gives you extra confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to have some runners on, or I might take another entry as we continue to break this point and take more tries at this. So you hit, have that big run down. Of course, you see the big run up. You're getting in 68 cents. And some people, like I said, got in earlier, had even bigger returns, 300-400%. Fantastic. But the anatomy of the trade here and what we're focusing on is how unusual whales, when you have your trade idea, when it's lined up with the market in particular, that shows you a lot of strength. So bearish in the market, you saw the QQQs breaking down. You saw the SPY breaking down. That's, of course, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Those are breaking down. You have a trade idea to the downside. You have a bearish flow. This is all systems go to have a good trade. So when we talk about it, it's not just about lining up your trade. It doesn't hurt to peek at what's going on intraday. Now, one thing that I will mention here is you notice some of the dates on that options flow were dated for next week. That's of course people trying to, or institutions trying to avoid the theta that was tied to the Friday, because this was a Friday, so theta is in full effect. And you could see, even though we didn't make a pullback here, you saw the option price start to come down. That's theta being aggressive as we made the pullback, combined with IV as well. So what it is it builds confidence for you when you start to see that flow, and it just adds additional conviction. I think it's a good idea, particularly for this flow on a Friday. But you also have to remember, one more note here is, take a look at my premiums video to understand what premiums matter. Because if you just see a bunch of $5,000 transactions coming out on Facebook and it's bearish, that's not necessarily a good sign, right? Because that's not overly significant. And if this was a Monday, it's even less significant. But when you're seeing same day expiries and higher premiums, you have to keep that in mind, because that exposure is high. So what we were seeing earlier is a lot of same day expirations and next week's expirations at more significant premiums. The more exposure to the buyer means they have more conviction to enter their trade. So that gives you an idea. It's something that you could peek at. I find that it's even better on Fridays when I'm scalping. As I'm scalping something, I will peek back and forth at the options flow just to add conviction to my existing trade idea. But of course, just remember, the number one thing is always looking at your price. Now, if you're interested in unusual whales and you haven't started using it, please feel free. Check out my link below. There's a discount code for you. The discount code is profits taken. And if you're already using unusual whales, guess what? You can go into the referral section, change your code, set it to profits taken. And I hope that helps out. Of course, also take a look, please, at Interactive Brokers. Executions are so important. I will be back with a little bit more in the future, but just as a clean recap on this, you can use options flow not just for lining up trades, but for adding conviction to existing trades. All right, everybody, I hope that was helpful, and we will be back with more soon.